Absolute evil aims to make mischief between communities and turn the world into a web of unhappiness. Each attack, each bombing, each bullet shot, and each radical statement made on the same line reinforce the borders of this division. Beyond all power-based measures taken so far, dialogue emerges as the most effective step against evil today. And dialogue means accepting everyone in their own position and establishing contact with people.
I think it's actually essential. Actually, I don't think that the clash of civilizations is not a reality. I think it's a label, but I don't think it's a reality whatsoever. I believe that in the core, when we look at religions, we see far more examples of cooperation.
I've never liked the clash of civilizations idea, and I think that is really too bad. And I think there are some ways in which it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. As we move along, people can say, oh, look, it's just as Huntington predicted. And I think that that should be countered at every turn. I don't think it's inevitable. I hope deeply that it is not inevitable. Convinced that if those of us who have a different picture of things can be active in our explanation and help people understand that that is not necessarily at all the way things are or going to be, we can make a difference.
You hear a lot today about this term, clash of civilizations, and I think it's such a dangerous term, and I think absolutely the only way something like that can be avoided is if people realize that there is no clash of civilizations. It will only occur if people, in their own minds, out of misunderstandings about each other, that can create this so-called clash of civilizations. And that's why the correct understanding of different cultures and different religious beliefs is...
Well, the UU Muslim Dialogue Group gave me a chance to witness Muslims at prayer and to have it explained to me what it was that the prayer was saying in Arabic and what it meant to be engaged in prayer. It also gave us a chance to share an iftar together, which we now do on an annual basis. I'd never been invited into Muslim prayer or Muslim holidays or special ceremonies before, and so it felt to me like a privilege. I felt as if I really was being, as if the Boston Dialogue Muslims were widening the circle a little bit, and they were saying, hey, come on in, you can do this with us. And that meant a lot.
As some try to create chaos on earth in line with their dark plans, goodness does not lay idle. Somewhere in the distance, a bright-faced youth greets someone he does not know with a most sincere smile. These relationships, which begin with words of goodness, soon turn into friendships. As people get to know each other more in time, they realize that such people as these cannot hurt any being on earth, let alone a human. Icicles of prejudice that are formed by hearsay, accusations, and lack of information melt away in the warm atmosphere of dialogue and come down to earth as drops of divine mercy.
I think through that, the stereotypes that were there have melted. Some of the stereotypes were about the place of women in Islam. I think many Americans now understand what the head covering means, that it's not meant to be a form of oppression or a hiding of women, but it has to do with modesty. I think there certainly have been stereotypes about Muslims all being Arab. And I think many people now understand that there are Muslims in many parts of the world and with different ethnic backgrounds.
I often tell my students that ignorance and fear go together, that we fear what we don't know and we don't understand. And it begins with ignorance, and ignorance creates fear, and out of fear we react in violence. And so there's a real correlation with fear and ignorance and violence, and we have to start, if we want to overcome violence and conflicts in the world, I think we have to start by overcoming the ignorance that exists among different cultures. And
the dialogue opens up the humanism of people, and when we see each other eye to eye, there's no need to fear people, because the fear is all based on perceptions and not the eye-to-eye, and not on eye-to-eye interactions. So I am absolutely convinced that building friendship and dialogue is the key to overcoming difficulties, and we can't wait for the politicians. I believe that we as the people need to undertake these dialogues.
And I think this, again, is such an important thing for us all to do, to be able to discuss, to be able to learn and to grow through talking with other people, enriching our own ideas with those of others. So I think that the work that the Boston Dialogue Foundation has set out to do is, again, very important, very valuable, both for the Muslim community and for the surrounding community, the larger community.
Evil wants to set the world on fire, and it tries to abuse the most lucid atmosphere of faith as it does this. Islam and all other Abrahamic religions, however, urge their devoted followers to first stay away from evil, and to be good, do good. Islam, which has become the target of extensive provocation, expresses itself to the world through dialogue.
And I think with a lot of news out there about clashes, ethnic and religious clashes around the globe, there has been some stereotyping about Muslims as terrorists or confrontational. And I think as people have come to learn about Islam, they've learned that, as in any other group, there are good and bad people. There are good and bad Muslims, there are good and bad Catholics, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, and I think that people are much less likely to generalize now about Muslims and more open to learning about the different groups of Muslims in the world and the different individuals in any one country.
When I grew up, I don't think I ever heard anything about Islam. And of course, because of the events of the last few years, much of what people here have learned about Muslims, about Islam, and their impression, much of it has been negative because of what we see on the news. However, I think that because of outreach programs like Boston Dialogue and just the goodwill and the good people who are in the Muslim community, Americans are slowly becoming more acquainted with the beauty of Islam, with the goodness that is in the people and the goodness that is in the religion, in the Quran and the Hadith.